Welcome. My name is Malcolm Ross, Vice President of Product for Appian, and this is the Appian 18.2 Product Announcement Webinar. Today, we're going to cover all the new features and capabilities of Appian 18.2. But first, I'd like to send a thank you out to all those people who were able to join us at the Appian World Conference. Of course, Appian World was just in mid-April in Fontainebleau in Miami Beach. And if you missed Appian World, we'd like to also invite you to Appian Europe coming up on October 8th and 9th of 2018 at the Hilton London Bankside. It's going to be a great conference. Unfortunately, we have lots of content to cover today, so I don't have time to really share all the details of the celebrity guest speakers we'll have, great content, product management meetings, and of course, the latest updates on what's new in the Appian product, all covered at Appian Europe in October. So hope to see you there, and go ahead and register today at appian.com/Appian Europe. With that, as I said, we have lots of material to cover today. Appian 18.2, in the tradition of the .2 releases every year, is one of the most significant releases we have of the year, with over 60 new features that we're going to try to cover here in the next 60 minutes. So we got to really burn through it. And with that, 18.2, expect the release date to be on June 1st, 2018. So that's coming up in a little less than 2 weeks. And today we're going to cover all the new end user, designer, and administrator features of the Appian 18.2 release. To kick right into it, let's talk about those end user features and sale components that are new with 18.2. And most importantly is a new layout control called the card layout. The card layout actually allows for a lot of interactive controls to be placed inside of your overall Appian sale experience. Here's an example of 4 card layouts, 2 styled red, 2 styled green. The card layout allows you to insert all sorts of content inside of it to call attention to specific areas of the interface. Not only that, is the card layout can actually have a link action associated with it. So each one of those card layouts here, where you see up cross-sell rate, average call resolution time, customer satisfaction, supervisor intervention, each one of those can also be made into a gigantic button. That button can be used to control maybe a submit action, a dynamic link action, update process variables, any type of link control that you'd like can be associated with each one of those card layouts, allowing to make for really custom button controls inside the entire interface. Also, you'll notice that each one of those card layouts can also have a different color. The color completely can be controlled by some of our regular colors, like the positive, negative, accent color, as well as any hexadecimal color code that you would like, allowing you complete control over the styling of those card layouts. Another example, or to take a look at that card layout control, you can also configure to have a short, medium, or tall size, or even an auto size to create a nice balanced look of those card layouts across maybe a column area. And as I mentioned before, the style code can be any hex color code, standard, accent, success, info, or warn. And as I mentioned, it simply has a contents parameter. That contents parameter allows you to insert, say, additional columns, color controls, entire record dashboards, anything you like can be inserted inside of the card layout. So a nice, flexible way of kind of creating call outs to specific content inside all your Appian sale interfaces. In addition, if you remember in Appian 18.1, we announced the preview mode of the web content channel. We're happy to announce that the web content channel, or the web content component, is now GA. And that is GA with embedding web content inside of any sale interface. Here you see an example where I've embedded a box document preview, a document being fed from box.com directly inside the Appian interface. Now, it's important to note that this is supported on Google Chrome, Firefox, and Microsoft Edge. Due to memory leak issues on the Safari and IE11 web browsers, we're not going to enable those to ensure that there's no memory performance issues on those older web browsers. We look forward to hopefully Apple Safari resolves the memory leak issue, and we can also include those web browsers as they receive updates. And also, you'll notice that on the mobile behavior, the embedding is not yet supported as well, and that will appear as a link action on mobile as well. To start using the web content component, you're going to notice a new component control called the web content field. It's going to take in a few simple parameters, such as the source URL, show border, height, alt text for 508 compliance, and of course the standard ones such as label and others. Now, as I mentioned before, only supported on Edge, Google Chrome, and Firefox. And it's also important to note that if you want to embed content, it needs to be embeddable. Many websites do not allow themselves to be embedded inside of an iframe control as this is being used. So make sure that whatever target content you have, such as this Google Map control, you can't simply embed Google Maps directly by going to maps.google.com. You need to go to the embed URL for Google Maps to get a behavior like this that you see in the example screenshot. Also, we've now brought forward Appian News. As you remember, the news from the Tempo experience has now also been brought forward into the sites and embedded experience. For embedding inside sites, the news control, it's a simple checkbox. You simply say check display news view on records. That's going to give you a control that looks like this. So whenever I navigate to a record inside of the sites experience, you're going to see the news tab being available with a brand new styling for the news view. That news view control has a few subtle differences. You'll notice that the record tags now appear as a subtle gray instead of that blue. You'll notice that there is no longer an add participant control. That's been changed to this share control right here, which says I want to share this with other users, and then that will behave the same as the add participants, inviting them to also see that news stream post. And of course, you have the same controls there. I can obviously comment on individual posts, add attachments, unsubscribe, all the typical controls that you have before, simply in a new styling inside these sites with a full sale experience. We've also introduced custom colors for rich text and charts. So here we see an example where I have a number of text controls, such as the ticket sales, excursions, food and beverage, airfare commissions, onboard retail. Each one of these, maybe I have specific colors I want to associate with. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the color control available. And I now have the option to say use custom color, which I simply insert the hexadecimal code directly. This also applies, of course, to chart series. So this is actually the example I have on the right is actually a chart series control. So you can define your own custom colors for each chart area in the chart series if you do not like to adopt the default color controls of the Appian pie charts, bar charts, and line charts. We've also made it easier to style rich text with multiple stylings. As you may know before, if you want to apply multiple stylings to an individual rich text control, such as I want to make it both strong or bolded as well as underlined, you need to nest those rich text controls. Now, instead of nesting, you can simply select multiple style options or an array of style options inside each individual rich text control. So you can see in the bottom right here where I want to make this maybe emphasis, strong, and underline. Simply select each one of those and you'll see those apply as a multi-select dropdown inside the interface designer. You now also have a divider line control inside the section layout. So there's a new parameter called divider inside the section layout, sale layout. That divider control simply inserts a nice horizontal line divider to give more delineation between content. You'll notice that you have three options for the divider control. I want no divider, which is the default as well. If I specify null for divider, that will be none, as well as above or below. So if you want to have the extra delineation, simply define whether you want that above or below the section layout. We also have a new selection style for grids. So this selection style makes it more intuitive for selecting maybe a content from a grid control. This applies both to the paging grid and editable grid control. So you can see the selection style control on the right-hand side. You now have a drop-down which can say I want to choose from a checkbox or a row highlight. As you see, as I switch this to a row highlight, it's going to nicely highlight the entire row, again, giving more visual delineation of the exact content that's been selected. The color for which the selection will occur will be the accent color. So inside the size control or tempo UI, you have that accent color control, which you can specify any hexadecimal value. That will be the color that's used to indicate the row highlight selection. Next, we have the export to Excel for all records. As you know, we had an export to Excel for a few records prior to the, or maybe just for entity-backed records prior to the 18.2 release. We've now brought forward the export to Excel for now all record types, which includes, as before, entity-backed records, process-backed records, and expression-backed records. As a reminder, to access this function, you need to turn it on inside the record type designer. Once you enable export to Excel for a record type, you'll see that export function appear in the upper right. The user simply selects it and they get that export directly out. As a reminder also, it preserves all filters and sorts during the export. So as I hit the export button, you'll notice that the sort is exactly as I had it before inside the record list view. Also, a minor improvement to charting capabilities. For line charts, now we connect lines over null values in a data series. So if you're returning a data series and some of those values inside the array of data were null values, before 18.2, this is the behavior received, where it will simply skip over those connections. Now with the data series, including skipping over null values, you see that there's, in this example, there's a null value given for January, and there's a null value given for June. Instead of simply highlight or not indicating those, we simply line over it without a dot. So you'll see that there's no dot value for those 2 months, indicating that they are null values, but you still do see the trend pattern inside the line chart. Next, we have the autofocus for all interactive components. Interactive components are basically those such as we see below, things that require interaction to complete the form, such as a simple date picker, or a custom picker, or a file upload. Before 18.2, when you had autofocus, that would not automatically call the cursor control to that specific field if it had an interactive component in it. Now, autofocus is supported for interactive components. So say if the first field you have is a file upload component, that will receive the automatic focus, not requiring, say, a mouse control to bring focus to that specific interactive component. And also, if you saw our announcements at Appian World most recently, we also were happy to announce the Appian Intelligent Contact Center platform. To be clear, what is included inside the Appian Intelligent Contact Center platform is essentially all the features that you'll hear about today in Appian 18.2, and of course, all existing features as well, in addition to a new Twilio customer engagement component. If you'd like to receive the Twilio customer engagement component as part of the Intelligent Contact Center platform offering on top of Appian 18.2, we ask you to contact your account executive. The account executive can give you access to that environment and make sure that you have the proper licensing in place for that Twilio customer engagement component. What this component allows you to do is create dynamic agent dashboards and intelligent customer interactions inside of the Appian Sale UI. So here we see an example where I'm receiving an inbound text, "Hi, I'm not happy with my order and I need a change." When that text comes in via SMS, you can see immediate interaction with the overall sale experience. So in the back end, this is using a webhooks push technology. Webhooks is receiving that inbound message, automatically passing that into a local variable inside the overall dashboard, and allowing a sale designer to say, when I receive a message, I automatically want to say update the UI and provide maybe more context to the agent. This interactive experience is specifically designed for creating agent experiences that can receive telephone calls, SMS chats, as well as general chats from, say, a web experience as well. As mentioned, this is powered by Twilio. Twilio, if you do not already have an account with Twilio, you sign up with that separately and then access the Twilio component. When you do have the Twilio customer engagement component enabled, you'll see that there's a new sale component available inside your design time experience called the Twilio field. The Twilio field has a number of parameters associated with it, such as the height, of course, as I want to adjust it, the standard ones, label and such. But more importantly, I can indicate which supported channels I want to include, voice, SMS, or chat. The Twilio connected system, so this does use the connected systems architecture, such as referencing a specific existing connection that was established from Appian to that target environment. And then a number of what we call system IDs or server IDs from Twilio. So as you sign up for a Twilio account, you'll receive a number of SIDs. Each one of those system IDs, SIDs, needs to be indicated inside the Twilio configuration. As you see, the workspace, the worker, the chat service all have individual SIDs for defining those controls. As well, there's a separate connected system for the chat capabilities. So there's another connected system, one for voice, one for chat. And then finally, you have a number of chat configurations, such as the chat suggestion. What do you want to do on task flow? So if I want to do some type of action on a new chat message, I want to automatically prompt maybe content for a new chat message, and what to do on communication complete. So say having saved parameters on each one of those to update the overall status of the sale dashboard inside of those. So if you'd like to, again, to start working with a Twilio field, again, we encourage you to contact your account executive. If you are a partner, contact your partner manager. We're looking to distribute that for development on partners as well as for customers who want to start building out a call center operations on the Appian platform. Finally, with end user experience, we're also happy to announce a new mobile beta access program. So we're getting ready to release a brand new Appian mobile UI. This is an updated UI and styling for all sale components for the mobile devices, both on Android and iOS. Most importantly, this brings into parity for web-rich styling that you had before inside the web experience. So here we see an example of an Android device on a tablet as well as on a phone using that new card layout. That new card layout makes it really intuitive for me to say select from different coverage plans I have for an insurance. Higher deductible, best for most people. Enhanced coverage, I can see very clearly delineated content by that color, each one inside the card layout. And the entire card layout can also be made into that clickable action. And of course, this looks really intuitive on a mobile device, as we see now with the new mobile beta version. If you'd like to start working with the mobile beta and seeing such as those billboard layouts, custom column width controls, card layouts, all those new styling features on the mobile platform, please register at mobile@appian.com. When you email mobile@appian.com, simply express your interest to be part of the mobile beta access program. We will make sure you get set up with the proper access to download the beta version of the mobile app. We expect that beta version of the mobile app to be GA sometime around the 18.3 release, which is scheduled for August of this year. So going on to the designer features for Appian 18.2. First, let's talk a little bit about some legacy interfaces that have been finally removed. For those of you who've been with Appian for a long time, you might remember the /designer interface. /designer, we're sorry that you've going to be missed, but you've been with us since 2009, and now with 18.2, it is completely removed and gone. When you go to /designer, you'll see simply an indication to go to the new design experience /design instead of /designer. And that also means all the old features that you had in /designer have now also been brought forward into the new design time paradigm. Most importantly, process monitoring, as we see here. So you see a very similar process monitoring dashboard, allowing me to say, see all the running processes, filter by whether they're active, canceled, or completed, maybe when they were started, which process model I want to filter by, the time range, as well as the one control you'll see that's not available inside of here is customizing the columns inside of here. If you'd like to get a more custom view, there's that option at the very bottom left to say go to customize report. Customize report is going to give you all of the similar functionality you had before to customize all the columns, maybe include process variables in your monitors, and kind of really customize that view to track exactly what you want. You'll also see an option there that says show process details in the upper right. Show process details is going to give you a filter to show the engine ID for which that process is running on, as well as the start time, and process instance ID as well if you need to reference by process instance ID as well. And more importantly, of course, it makes it much more intuitive to navigate to processes with errors and filter to these as well. Also inside of this, if you remember /designer for our cloud customers, that's where you also access, before 18.2, the cloud database as well as the system logs. Now inside the drop-down menu in the upper right-hand corner, you have quick access to both the cloud database and system logs. So simply click on that button up top. You see cloud database as a new access control if you do have rights to the cloud database, as well as system logs. Simply click on that. Get to system logs, and then it's going to pop open system logs for you directly from the new design time experience. In addition, we've also enhanced the Quick Apps and App Builder platform. So we've seen that Quick Apps and the application builder and the full design experience is a great way to get started as I'm building out a brand new application in Appian. It gives you a number of foundational components that you can start to build from, such as a record type, basic user interfaces, process models for creating and deleting content, as well as business rules associated with all that. And the nice thing also is it lays it out into a nice organized structure with proper prefix as well and proper descriptions on all those elements. To simplify this, the quick apps, though, did generate a lot of maybe extra content that was not necessary, such as ad hoc tasking, collaboration, reports. Maybe that is not necessary. So we've created a basic version of the application builder. The basic version of the application builder allows you to quickly create the 20 most common foundational objects of any application. It's going to be a similar experience to the Quick Apps and Application Builder Designer, where I simply have a 3-step wizard. I'm going to define the name, the interface, which is mostly the metadata associated with my content, and then simply hit build and who's going to access it. You'll see now that there's a record type created, some basic process models for creating new objects of that type, some user interfaces, as well as some overall kind of rule controls and folder controls to organize that content. As mentioned, instead of building the 80 plus actions or objects that the Quick Apps Builder builds, this is only going to build 20 foundational objects. Great way to kick off any new project inside the Appian platform. Also inside the Application Designer, we also have a filter by last modified user. So before we did have the last modified by date, so you can specify date range. Now I can say, well, I really just want to find content that was modified by, say, Malcolm Ross. Quickly, simply insert their name, filter applications or objects to quickly find objects that were filtered by those individual users. And speaking of object browsing, we've also improved the overall performance of object browsing inside the design time experience, such as loading the objects list, searching objects, and filtering objects. This is most noticeable on systems with many rule versions and documents. So the more content and objects you have, you're going to notice a much larger speed improvement in how that behaves in browsing and navigating between those large objects lists. Inside the data type designer, we've also added the ability to reorganize content or reorganize fields. So you'll notice on the far right-hand control, there's a new control for the data type designer, which is the up and down control. If I need to reorganize the layout of fields, I no longer need to export that content to an XML schema definition, modify it, then re-import it. I can simply directly inside the data type designer move content up and down or those fields up and down to change the order inside of that data type. We've also made 2 minor improvements to constants, the first of which is defining environment-specific email address constants. Oftentimes, it's required to say, I'm going to have a dedicated email address for this specific system. Maybe it's the administrator for the production versus development environment. You can now create a constant and define the email address and make that an environment-specific. When that is an environment-specific constant, the export behavior does not export the value of that constant. You need to include that in a custom.properties file, which will define, say, the custom properties for a specific environment. In addition, we've also allowed you to now define constants for connected systems. So for example, you'll notice that some of those new rule functions, such as the Twilio field, do have a parameter for the connected system for which they want to connect to. Now you can define those connected systems as constants for referencing inside business rules, such as the Twilio field. We've also introduced a few smart defaults, the first of which is document process report save locations will automatically inherit the save location of the overall application, and also labels for report builders. So more intuitive labels to make sure we define, say, name, I'm going to capitalize name, SKU, description. We're going to make smart decisions on the labels for any reports using the report builder inside the interface designer. In addition, we've introduced a few new shortcut keys inside the expression rule designer, interface designer, decision designer, and integration designer. These include now a control or command click if you're on Apple to open data types. So if you ever use the type bang allows you to start to reference a specific data type. by doing a command click on Apple or control click on Windows that will automatically open the data type from the expression. We've also introduced the control or command plus enter to run a test. That run test is going to automatically bring up the test run screen that you can very quickly then rerun a test on that interface or rule or decision. We've also introduced a control and command plus I, which allows you to quickly add new rule inputs. So just hang that quickly. I can add, say, a number of rule inputs all in one action. We've also added expressible default filters for all record types. So what this means is that now the entity-backed records and process-backed records may filter content by default. To start to use this, simply go to the record type designer. Inside the record type designer, you're going to start to insert, say, a query filter or query logical expression function. You'll see those default filter configuration. I can define now by field or by expression. When I choose by expression, simply define, as in this example, query filter, I only want items with a quantity greater than 300. And then you can see that example specified there. We also have a bulk export import of patches across applications. So from the application designer application list view, you simply select all the applications for which you'd like to export their packages. So you can now do a multi-select. If we recognize that one of those packages does not have, or one of those application packages does not have a patch, then you'll see that the export patches button disappears. To highlight that, you see the export patches button right here. I selected 3 applications inside my application list. And then the confirmation screen is indicating that I have 3 objects from the 18.2 samples, 3 objects from the basic application, and 3 objects from the Microsoft Azure Lewis integration as well. And of course, that really simplifies, of course, overall export and importing of patches. I can then import that single zip file and it will update all 3 applications in one action. And also a much bigger one is automatic rule input renaming. So designers may now rename rule inputs and all references to the input will be updated automatically. So in this example, you see on the right-hand side, I have the value amount. Let's say I want to change that to price. You'll see not only inside the test, it's updated the text as I typed it, but also inside all references to the expression area or inside the interface design area, it will automatically update the rule input names. So this is a great feature, saves you a lot of time if I need to change, if I had typos in rule inputs, I don't need to go back there and reference all the rule input names. We'll automatically find all the locations that rule input was referenced and make those updates across both the content as well as all the associated parameter values and other content. And to go along with this, we also enabled smart rule renaming across the entire platform. This applies to interfaces, expression rules, constants, query rules, decisions, and integration rules. These rules, if you rename a rule now, it will automatically update all references to that rules across all objects. So here we see an example where I want to name a rule from 18.2 sample to 18.2 demo sample. I simply select the object I want to rename, go to its value. So in the dropdown, I have that new option called rename. I can rename the rule just like this. And any reference to that rule, whether it's from a process model or interface, everywhere that rule is referenced will automatically be updated with the rule reference name. So great feature. I know a lot of you and designers have been looking forward to this as a great way of kind of very quickly renaming objects inside the system. Many times we have, say, a typo. We want to correct that typo very quickly without having to go and refactor all of our designs to include that new rule name. Now, going into probably one of the biggest features of the Appian 18.2 release is the new Appian Interface Designer. This really represents a complete overhaul of the interface design experience, and most importantly includes a drag and drop capability. So this allows me to very quickly compose interfaces using a drag and drop function. So you can see in my example here, I can very quickly lay out content without having to go into any type of expression view or design view or navigating the design tree. But let's go ahead and see many of these features in action, jumping into a live demonstration. So I'm going to go over to my environment, go to my Appian 18.2 samples, and let's go to, say, interface here. Now let's go ahead and just maybe launch a new interface from scratch first. So let's go, say, new interface. So as I launch into it, you're going to see quite a different layout that you've been familiar with before from the old interface designer. As you can see, the left-hand pane is now the layouts or all the component palettes, all the objects I can possibly drag and drop. There's a big indication, drag and drop from palette is exactly what you need to do. And of course, there's a number of new templates to also choose from. So you have a sales dashboard, faculty record, landing page, maybe some design layouts for doing a master detailed design page or general former page or drill down layout as well, or maybe a wizard layout. If I want to just start from scratch, I can just say, I want to just start dragging and dropping objects over. So I can say, let's start with a form control inside of here. That form control, as I lay it out, it's going to give me a nice area. You can see that's indicating I need to drop components here and here, where I can actually insert contents being highlighted to me. You'll notice that on the right-hand side now, I have the design view pane where I can start controlling the individual parameters of each of the fields I'm on. Let's go ahead and say I want to have a multi-column layout. Multi-column layout now shows each of the columns I can drop into. So I have a nice delineation. I have 3 columns by default. If I need to add additional columns, I have that plus indicator on the far right. So I can just go and hit plus, 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 just like that. If I have too many columns, I can go ahead and say remove some of those columns just like this as well. Now let's go ahead and drag and drop, say, some of those card layouts that I had before. So I have a card layout, card layout, card layout, just like this. Inside the card layout, let's say I want to insert some images inside of those. So let's go ahead and say for this image, I want to have an image control. And again, an image control and an image control, just like that. Now, as you can see in this image control, I have an indication that says I need to define what image I want. So let's say I want to have a document image inside of here. And it's going to give me a nice placeholder for that document image inside each one of those locations. Now, if I need to navigate back to the card layout, here I have a column that has a card layout inside of it. That card layout now has an image layout inside of it. Simply clicking on that header is going to give me, say, navigate to the individual control I want. So much more intuitive for navigating to the individual design object like the C. Of course, if I want to modify these, let's say I want to hide that image control just like this. Let's go ahead and hide that image label as well, just like this. Image label. And then the size or the style, the alignment, say I want to have each one of these be centered as well to center that content inside the environment. Now, if I want to select the card layout, let's say for this card layout, I want to choose a specific color. Let's just make this one success. Again, I select the card layout just like this. Maybe make this one info. And again, select the card layout just like this, and maybe make this one worn. So now I have kind of 3 nice card layouts laid out very easily inside the interface. Now let's say I want to go ahead and say add a section inside of here. That section I can say, again, I simply look for that pink line to indicate where it's going to go. If I want to go under the image inside the card layout, maybe inside the column, or below all the column controls like this. So here I had below the column controls. Inside that section layout, let's go back and say, I want to find that divider line. I want to have a divider line above the content. So now I'm going to more clearly indicate where that section is going to begin. Inside this divider line, let's maybe then have, say, a 2-column control. Go ahead and delete one of those columns. And let's have maybe a number of fields inside of here. So this field, I'm going to have, say, the text component, and I want to have that be adjacent to the content. Let's do a justified layout. Call this first name, just like this. Now, I need to lay down lots of these individual text field controls. You'll see an option here to also say I need to delete or duplicate. So if you click on the label itself, you're going to get to the navigation to the overall nested controls. If I want to get the controls to the individual object, I can duplicate or delete. So duplicate, I can simply choose just like this to very rapidly duplicate individual fields. Now, similarly, it has a hotkey associated with it, which is that on my Mac computer, a Command D. So I can just do Command D like that and suddenly have a lot of fields. And of course, we also support the undo feature. So if I have too many there, I can just hit Command Z and delete many of those fields as well. So much easier to kind of lay down lots of content very quickly. If I want to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and put that paragraph field on the right-hand side, and then maybe I need to have 2 paragraph fields, so very quickly duplicate that just like this. Now, again, nice ways of kind of quickly laying out the overall style inside of here, but you notice that it's showing me still a lot of things that aren't really part of my interface, such as this plus to add another column, and this plus to add another column here. And well, yeah, I can add a button layout control down here. So if I can, makes it very easy for me to understand where I could design content, such as if I need to add new buttons inside of here, simply drag and drop a button control like that. But it's not what my interface actually looks like. So you'll notice that there's 3 new tabs at the very top. One is the edit view, which I'm in right now. The next is the preview view. The preview view is going to remove all that extra content. It's going to take away the design capability. So I'm no longer able to drag and drop inside of here. I can, though, still configure. So if I'm on specific fields inside of here, it will highlight those, and I can maybe configure those inside the environment. But this is for the purpose of previewing it. You'll notice also the mobile form factor preview is going to be available right here. So I have the tablet view as well as the phone view available to me right here. Important to know that the tablet and mobile preview are going to show you exactly a preview of what the mobile experience will be like with the GA version of mobile device today. As I mentioned, we do have a mobile beta, which does bring parity with all these more advanced controls, such as the multi-column and column width controls, the card layout control, the billboard layout. All those will be supported in the mobile beta. And when the mobile beta goes GA, the mobile preview will also be updated to represent those as well. Now, for those of you who still like to take a look at the low-level sale code, you still have the expression view right here. So you can see that toggle between design view and expression view is available to me right here. When I go to expression view, you can see that it's going to now give me that detailed control of exactly all the code that's behind this specific interface. Again, there's full parity between the design view and the expression view. So there's no configuration you can do inside the expression view that cannot be represented properly inside the design view. But of course, the expression view is a place where if you're going to write more algorithmic expressions to control dynamic logic, it's a great way to pop into that to actually see that algorithmic logic as well. But of course, all that algorithmic logic is also available inside the design view. So inside, for example, if I go to, say, individual card layout control here, so I've selected that card layout, and maybe some of these card layout controls have maybe individual expressions I need to define. So I can go to, say, that card layout, go to the expression. Now this is going to isolate, of course, just the expression for the individual card layouts rather than the overall environment. So here I can insert that more complex logic if I so choose to maybe have dynamic logic control, they say the label or other configurations. Now, where's the tree view, the navigation tree? You'll notice that if I extend further out, you're going to see also the navigation tree. So this gives you that kind of more functional look at the entire interface. The navigation tree still formulates an important purpose because this is also an easy way to navigate all the components, even if they're not necessarily being rendered right now. So for example, this card layout, I can say, well, I can have a visibility only show when, and then edit a condition, and then say true equals false. Of course, true will never equal false. So that card layout just disappears. So inside of here, it looks like there's no component, but there's actually a hidden component based on visibility conditions. So I can still see those hidden components inside of here as I select the individual areas inside. You also see that there's an indication right here by the eye indicator indicating that that currently has a visibility condition. So maybe it's not currently visible, displayed only under certain conditions. So again, the tree layout still gives you important navigation structure to understand maybe all the components inside the interface, even if they're not necessarily being rendered based on the current data state of the UI. As I mentioned before, in regard to rule inputs, you also have new hotkeys. So if I simply in my Mac here hit Control-I, that's going to give me an interface. So very quickly say new rule input, create, Control-I. Very easy way, saving me mouse moves, hotkeys are really useful for kind of rapidly creating a UI inside the environment. If I need to test this overall environment, as you remember, I have a new hotkey on Command Enter, just like this. It's going to bring open the test interface. I can then prompt some values, just like this, and go ahead and test to see what that result might look like inside the environment. So really excited to get this out to you. Of course, this is a pretty much an overhaul of the overall design time experience. We're looking forward to feedback and any type of other information that you have around how we can improve it in the future. But already we're seeing really dramatic improvement in the overall design time of very quickly laying out UIs, and also supporting more like also supporting JAD sessions with your business users. So being able to have a very collaborative session with your business users, laying out content on the fly of exactly how you want the UI to look without ever having to expose, say, the sale code to your business users as well. So let's take a look at maybe some final examples I put together here, such as the card layout pricing page. Here's an example that we showed off at Appian World as well. And this is showing a really nice intuitive experience around, again, the card layout, using that card layout to really call attention to specific content. Again, the entire card layout can be made selectable. So I can say, well, I don't necessarily have to have this choose this quote button here. I can make the entire thing a selectable object, so like one giant button. And of course, down below, I have the billboard layout. So I actually had a nice bottom treatment here to show like the houses I'm trying to ensure inside of this have a really nice, beautiful UI experience. But of course, I'm seeing a lot of extraneous content inside the edit view. So again, if I want to preview this, simply go to the preview view to see exactly what it's going to look like, say, inside the web experience. And again, a nice layout control, nicely centered using the multi-column with the column width controls. I think I have a medium styling on both the left and the right, and then 3 kind of narrow stylings in the middle. And of course, the card layout with the hexadecimal color control, giving a lot more color pop to the individual items. Maybe go to another one, say the selection style grids here. If you remember this sale component control, so this allows me to say have a selectable grid with more styling control options. So right now, if I go ahead and select that grid control, so simply select that grid, that's going to open up the design pane right here. And now I can see I have that new control in the selection style. I want to change it from, say, a checkbox to a row highlight instead. That row highlight, again, gives a lot more accent of to exactly what content was selected. So now if I want to preview this, again, it's in design mode, so I see a lot of extraneous content like adding additional content in this rich text field, maybe adding more columns inside of this column control down here. Let's go to my preview mode. Preview mode then gives me a nice look at how this is going to be actually behave. And then I can go to my, say, select the French Revolution instead and see how that's going to toggle my content coming from my database source. So if I want to prime this up with more content, I again hit Command Enter to go to my test mode. And here I'm kind of preloading the content I have inside the system. So what are all the classes, selection? If I want to rerun this, simply hit Command Enter to very quickly get that. Rerun the test to reset it to the original state. And now I can navigate around this to see exactly how it's going to behave. So great way. Again, I probably had a blank data state inside of there. So let's go ahead and just retest that to reset it. So really looking forward, again, to getting this in your hands June 1st. Look forward to the GA release. And of course, all of our cloud customers will be notified of that upgrade schedule shortly. So let's continue on. We have actually more to cover inside the Appian 18.2 release. Next is really around connected systems integration, a really big overhaul also on the integration structure with Appian. So as you know, before the 18.2 release, really only supported RESTful API integrations to the platform. Now we're introducing OpenAPI support, which is a way of consuming what's known as Swagger files, which describe RESTful endpoints much more intuitively, and leading to pretty much a no-code integration interface. And also what we're calling connected systems templates. 3 connected systems templates are now shipping with 18.2, which are all associated with integrating artificial intelligence inside the Appian platform. These include Amazon Machine Learning, Microsoft Azure Lewis, and Google Cloud Natural Language Processing. Again, all great complements to the Intelligent Contact Center platform we also introduced with 18.2. Now, in regard first to HTTP authentication, we now support a new authentication type, which is API keys. As you may recall, before 18.2, we supported OAuth 2.0 as well as basic authentication. Now you'll need to see a new selection for authentication type called API key. You'll receive two configurations. How do I want to pass it as either a header or a parameter? And I simply define the header or parameter name and the API key value. That's going to allow you to securely store API keys with the connected systems so that integration designers can use that connected system without maybe actually being exposed or having access to the API key. In addition, we've also introduced OpenAPI for connected systems. OpenAPI is industry standard for describing RESTful endpoints. Here we see an example of consuming the Box integration platform. So Box, if you're not familiar with that, it's a cloud-based content management system. I'm using the OpenAPI connection to go to my Box integration through OpenAPI, define the description referencing the Swagger file, which is then giving me a full description of how I connect to that environment, which is here an OAuth 2 configuration. Simply authorize my access to Box, and now done, and now I'll simply create a new integration from it. So this little video script is going kind of quickly, so let's navigate over and just see a live demonstration of this. Let's go to my Box integration example and go to my new connected system. First thing first is you'll see these new selection options. I'm going to go ahead and select OpenAPI to just initiate this one and go ahead and say, well, if I don't want to have the OpenAPI logo, I can go ahead and choose a different logo. So I'm going to choose my Box logo instead. I'm going to say, just call this Box. And now it's going to ask for the Swagger file. The Swagger file is something you'll receive from the target system you're going to try to integrate to. Swagger is basically a JSON file which describes the RESTful endpoint. It's going to say, this is how I authenticate, these are my endpoints, and these are the parameters and functions and methods that I support. So here I have the Swagger file loaded into the Appian document management system. I'm simply going to reference it just like this. If we want to take a look at what a Swagger file looks like, I'll go ahead and download the file here. And let's open that up. And here you can see the Swagger definition. Again, this is a document you'll receive from the target system you're trying to integrate to, as here is my Swagger definition of my APIs. As you can see, it's telling me all the key information around this APIs. What are the different methods again? What are the parameters for those methods? What's the authentication type? What's the endpoints around that? Once I have that Swagger definition consumed by Appian, it's going to automatically recognize what is the base URL for connecting to that target system. What is the authentication types it supports? So right now, no authentication or OAuth 2.0. And then down below, it's going to ask for the OAuth 2.0 credentials. So it's going to say, it's recognized my configuration for the callback URL, as well as what is my authorization endpoint for authorizing to that Box environment. Now I don't have my client key, client secret memorized, so I already have this set up here as another environment. Let's go to my predefined connected system. As I go inside of here, I can say I'm going to authorize this again. So I'm going to go ahead and authorization. It's going to say prompt me for my credentials to Box. I'm going to authorize my system, my Appian environment, to connecting to that Box environment by hitting grant access to Box. It's done authorizing. Now I see that connection's been established. So now I have a successful connection established between my Appian environment and my Box environment using my credentials. Now I can say I want to use this in a new integration. And very easy now, I don't need to go look at the Box documentation, look at all the different methods they support. I can simply see, well, here's every function I possibly want to do with Box. So maybe I want to create a new folder inside of here. So let's do create folder. Now let's say Box create folder, just like that. And go ahead and create. And very easy now, it's already recognized the parameters I need to send to Box. So the fields I need to define inside of here, as well as any other values I need to pass inside in the environment. And just like that, I can test the request and now send that information over to Box. And now I would actually need to define some fields. I don't want to actually create some content in Box just yet. So just like that, I can start integrating to that Box environment. So really powerful way of kind of connecting to no-code integration to these environments. Now let's talk about another one in regards to Google Natural Language Processing. Google Natural Language Processing is a really powerful artificial intelligence service for doing things like sentiment analysis and natural language processing of any content, text string inside the environment. This is even easier, though, than saying do an OpenAPI connection, because since it's an established connected system, we already know how to talk to Google. We know that it's going to require an API key. So you'll go into Google Developer Console, generate an API key to your Google account, and then simply specify the API key here. It'll be securely stored inside the connected system. And now once I've established that, simply set up a new integration and then define the configuration for the integration. So again, let's go ahead and take a look at this in action. I'll go to my Google Cloud integration example. And here again, to set up that Google integration, let's go ahead and actually generate one from scratch. So connect the system. So here's my configuration for my connected system. Again, since I already know how to connect to Google, it's simply prompting for the API key. I can see that that's a successful connection. The API key is valid, and I simply want to use that in a new integration. So new Google integration, just like this. Hit create. And now, really, I mean, I don't need to know anything about the RESTful API. It's giving me nice natural language descriptions of exactly what I can do with this API. Do I want to do sentiment analysis, entity sentiment? Do I want to find named entities in text along, so salience mentions, things like this, find content, syntax analysis of the text. So let's just see, I want to do a sentiment analysis on this environment. So do I want to do this passing it to plain text or HTML? And what language do I want to process this in? So let's say I want to choose English and say, this is a great feature for integrating with Google. Now let's analyze this, hit test. And just like this, I'm receiving then the response back from Google. It's giving me a magnitude score of 0.8, which is telling me of a score of 0 to 8. That's a very high sentiment score. So that's a very positive statement inside of there. So this is how you would work with those results. Once I have that integration established, I can then use this very easily across all the different areas of the product, such as automatically analyzing sentiment of inbound emails, chats as they come in real time via the Twilio component, any type of content you can then apply this sentiment and text analysis on. So another example of this is Microsoft Azure LUIS integration, language understanding integration service. So language understanding is a bit different from the Google natural language processing. This is going to give you context analysis of what the meaning and context of a specific text string is. So in this case, again, it's going to work just the same as a Google natural language processing, except Microsoft Azure has different connection information. So it's requiring a subscription key region, starter key. So there's different configurations required for authenticating to Azure. And again, Appian is natively aware of this connection information. So again, let's go into my Microsoft Azure example instead. And again, we'll start with my connected system on my LUIS integration. So 1 second. So in my LUIS integration here, I can see I have a subscription key, the key region, the starter key region, the Bing spell check subscription key. So these are, again, configurations specifically required for connecting to LUIS. And do I want to use this in my staging environment or not? Again, simple checkboxes. I don't need to know anything about the APIs I'm connecting with. I can validate this as a connection just like this. So the connection was successful. Appian is now connected to this Azure cognitive service. I now use this in integration. I'm just going to call it anything here. Save in 18.2 samples. And again, just like the Google integration, I have a simple kind of no-code configuration here. Which LUIS app do I want to connect to? So I have the home help desk. Inside LUIS, that's where I train the context awareness. So here I have a help desk. It's going to be a general automatic triaging. So it's going to allow me to analyze any inbound text and then automatically triage that and give me context of what the person wants. So I can say, I have a broken laptop and need to have it replaced. So using Azure, it's going to automatically say, analyze that text string and give me an indication of maybe what the intent was behind that. So here I can see that the intent has come back as an IT intent. So if I have like a general service intake, I cannot have to have a separate service intake for HR, separate for IT, separate for customer service. I can just have one service bound intake and automatically analyze that text and say, well, this is related to IT, or this is related to HR benefits, or this is related to customer service. You can use this maybe across real-time trolling of Twitter and Facebook to analyze your Twitter streams, analyze intent or what people are asking about, and automatically route that to the proper person for triaging and response back. So great addition to the overall cognitive services of Appian. And then finally, you have machine learning service. So this is powered by Amazon Machine Learning. And Amazon Machine Learning is the most general purpose engine for building custom machine learning algorithms that apply to your unique business. So rather than Google, which again very much is a packaged cognitive service for sentiment analysis, Microsoft Azure Lewis, which requires a minimal level of training to have context awareness to your specific business functions, versus Amazon Machine Learning, which is really kind of a raw level machine learning service for training an artificial intelligence engine to recognize and predict outcomes inside your environment. So just like the other two, you have a simple connected systems architecture for validating connected systems. Again, that's going to translate to a simple no-code designer for setting up that integration. So again, let's take a look at the Amazon machine learning example. So just as before, you have an Amazon machine learning connected system. It's going to ask for the access key and the region for which I want to run this machine learning service. And then finally, you have the integration. So in this example, I have an integration set up already. It's going to recognize all your machine learning algorithms that you set up inside AWS. So here I have a variety of AWS machine learning services available to me. When I select one, it's automatically going to recognize whether this is going all the fields required. So I'm going to pass it all these parameters, and I'm going to predict maybe a customer credit classifier. So I want to classify using the data, metadata about this customer, which credit scoring they should probably have. I can also have this be a dynamic model if I want to automatically train this over time as well, associate that back to the model ID to generate new predictions. So if I go ahead and test this, let's go ahead and hit test. And now that prediction is giving me a predicted score rating of the propensity of a certain credit score. So here I can see that value is a 0.53, and this is that machine learning kind of prediction of how it classifies into a specific credit score area. Again, this is a bit more raw. So again, you use AWS machine learning to configure all these, and then a no-code integration from Appian to start using these inside your overall design experience. So also inside Integration Designer, we also have an important configuration with multi-part form data requests. So this specifically helps if you're going to transfer documents from Appian to a target system. So multi-part requests allow you to say in the body, I have multiple parts of this. The first part's going to be maybe a JSON structure. The second part's going to be a document structure. So to start configuring a multi-part request, you simply inside the Integration Designer, let's go to my example here in Box. So upload to Box. So Box, for example, has a multi-part request of how I'm going to transfer a document from Appian to the Box platform. So simple configuration. Again, I simply use the OpenAPI to understand the Box API. So I'm going to choose, say, the create folder action, which is going to give me this upload URL endpoint. Then down below, I have, instead of just a JSON structure or XML structure, I'm going to choose multi-part form data. In multi-part form data, I have the first value, which is going to be a JSON structure, and then the second value, which is going to be just a document. We're going to know how to encode that document to transfer that automatically to the Box platform. Inside the JSON structure, so I can see I have some metadata associated with the document, such as the document name, as well as the document extension and the parent ID, such as the parent folder I want to insert it in. This is structured in a way that a Box is expecting the data structure to come. And they simply pass that document. Now inside my test screen right here, I can say I want to go ahead and upload a document to the system. So let's go ahead and look for a document at random. F10, let's go ahead and send it. Test request. And now I've sent that document over. So let's go ahead into Box. We'll go ahead and log into my Box account now. Next, log in. And let's validate F10 just made it over, just like that. So let's go ahead and maybe do another one. Again, let's go to my upload to Box layout. Choose maybe another graphic, M10, which is my mail photo number 10. Hit test requests. And just like that, Box has recognized that it's received that file. Hit refresh, and there's my M10 mail number 10 graphic. So again, multi-part form requests, really powerful feature for doing kind of complex data transfers inside the Integration Designer. And then finally, a minor feature, you can now also save those test values for integration. So if you're revisiting the integration multiple times, I can simply set as default test values inside the Integration Designer. It'll preserve that content next time I reference it. With the Appian Process Modeler, a number of updates, and most importantly is process incident details and errors are now available inside the Process Modeler. So let's say you were working in 18.1 or earlier, and you're trying to debug the Appian Process Modeler, and you always remember that you need to navigate out of the Process Modeler into the alerts area to basically see what alerts or the errors occurred, and then reference those back to the Process Modeler. No more, much, much easier. Now with the Appian 18.2 release, I can go to my scene monitoring view. Actually, let's go to the general monitoring view here. And here right away, I can see processes with errors inside the system. So very quickly, seeing all my processes with errors, clicking on it will open up the process modeler. You no longer need to have a process instance dashboard, and no longer do I need to navigate back to the individual alerts area to try to correspond that alert to what's going on. I simply go to process details. You'll now see a history of the process of what executed. I can see all the data state variables. I can edit those values right here. The process nodes, what's been executed, how many times, the duration it took, current tasks as well, and of course, most importantly, errors. So this tells me right here that the script task had an error writing it could not cast a user type to a document type. So very easy to now debug all the individual processes inside the individual process modeler. So great productivity feature for those process designers out there. In addition, we've also made it much easier to find specific smart services. As you know, with custom smart services coming to the mix as well, that smart service list gets really long. So now you have a search menu inside the process modeler palette to simply type in any keyword, quickly search and filter and find that specific process smart service and drag and drop that into the palette just like that. Also, based on feedback from the Export to Excel CSV Smart Service, we've now split that into two different smart services. So in 17.4, we introduced this initial smart service that allowed you to easily export data stored inside the data store entity to either the Excel or CSV format. That was an all-in-one with configuration. Now it's simply two different smart services, one for CSV and one for Excel separately. And finally, with Appian 17.2, we also have a native sentiment analysis capability. So although I demonstrated Appian integration to Google Natural Language Processing for sentiment analysis, that's actually not necessary. We also have an AI-trained cognitive services natively incorporated inside the Appian platform, which is exposed to a new function called sentiment score. You're simply going to pass sentiment score a text string. So it can be a string of text, and it's going to give you a rating of 1.0 for the highest positive score to negative 1.0 for the lowest negative score. This does currently support US English only, and this is available in Appian Cloud only. So it does run as a multi-tenant cloud service with all the Appian Cloud architecture, and the function will only be available to all cloud customers in 18.2 or higher. Again, how to use this function, simply go into any area where you have expressions. I can go into my application designer here, say Azure, create a new expression rule just like this. Anywhere where I need to analyze text to get some gauging of the sentiment, I would use this maybe based the prioritization of content. So I can say sentiment score just like this. And as you can see inside the sentiment score, very simple function, simply pass it the text string for which I want to consume. It's going to then return back a value for that text string, which is going to score that value inside the environment. Here I'm going to say this is great to have native AI services in Appian, just like this, hit test rule. And currently, if your system is not connected to the cloud sentiment cloud service, this is the error that you'll receive. So you can see that this function is currently unavailable. Again, it's going to be launching 18.1. So look forward to that function become available at launch time. Right now, this system just happens to not be connected to the sentiment analysis engine. And that's it for designer features. Now let's close out with a lot of administrator features. The first administrator and architectural feature is more process execution engines. As you may have been familiar, the previous cap for process execution engines was about 16 engines. Now that's been expanded to 32 engines. This basically doubles the throughput capacity of the Appian process execution environment. If you imagine Each one of those engines might have an addressable memory of, say, 32 or 64 gigs of memory. So it gives you a massive amount of addressable memory to manage all the process execution environment. As well, of course, when you combine this with the high availability offering, you have a theoretical limit of 96 execution engines, because as you may be familiar in the process, in the high availability architecture, we do kind of load balance across all three environments simultaneously as well. We've also introduced Appian on Docker. So Appian on Docker allows administrators and architects to now deploy Appian inside Docker containers. When we publish 18.1 or 18.2, there will be an update to the white paper available on the Appian community and our documentation, giving you guidance on installing Appian on Docker containers. This allows you to kind of containerize the JBoss server, search server, service manager, data server. Each one of these is designed to operate in their own individual container so that each one of them can also be scaled individually. So if I find, say, I need to have more service manager engines or more web servers or more search servers, I can manage those individual containers and scale the architectures very easily inside the Docker container environment. We're also proud to announce Appian Cloud is now available in a high availability architecture for GovCloud. GovCloud is obviously our FedRAMP certified environment for the US federal government. This allows you to have a highly secured environment for federal government customers or state government customers. And high availability, of course, gives you a 15-minute RTO RPO contract. This is going to guarantee that all requests are, or any outage is no longer than 15 minutes, recovery time objective, recovery point objective. That gives you replication across 3 availability zones inside of a single data center or a single region per se. Appian Cloud also supports now bring your own keys for encryption of hardware-based information. So Appian Cloud sites now use a key store and a hardware security module hosted on the Appian on the customer's AWS virtual private cloud to encrypt their data. What this means is that all data at rest is naturally encrypted and that our customers now control the keys to that data. Communication also between Appian Cloud and the HSM is secured by end-to-end encryption connection as well. So basically, you're in control of the data. You can control the encryption key to all data at rest inside the Appian Cloud environment. We also have a new filtering option available for filtering traffic based on source IPs. So of course, we already provide such security controls such as a dedicated VPN tunnel. But if you want to have additional security controls, or maybe you cannot have a VPN, but I still want to have maybe improved filtering, we can say, well, we're only going to allow connections to the Appian Cloud environment from specific source IPs. So maybe you have a domain of IPs that you're expecting from your corporate headquarters, for example. We can then say you can only, say, receive input to the Appian Cloud environment from those specific IP address ranges. You do want to review the considerations and recommendations carefully when using this approach to manage web traffic from the knowledge base on Appian community. We're also proud to announce a new availability region inside Tokyo, Japan. Appian Cloud now supports hosting inside the Asia Pacific region outside of Tokyo. If you would like to have if you do have customers in the Japan region and would like to consider hosting Appian Cloud inside that region, please contact your account executive or Appian Cloud support to discuss moving or extending your region hosting to the Japan location. And final Appian Cloud update. Appian Cloud MySQL updates now has been moved from version 1.5.4.4 to 1.5.4.6 JDBC driver. If you'd like information on this latest JDBC driver, there's a link here to the MySQL MySQL reference website, which gives you any type of subtle information about the new connection functionality introduced in 5.1.4.6. A very minor update to the Appian Cloud JDBC driver. And that is it for 18.2. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. And of course, we look forward to seeing you at Appian Europe on October 8th to 9th in 2018 at the London Hilton Bankside. Thank you very much and have a great day.